This is the Erasing Shame podcast, Season 3. Honest talk for healthy living, growing, and thriving.
Welcome to another episode of Erasing Shame. This is our final episode for Season 3. And my name is DJ Chuang. I'm so glad that I can connect with my co-host, Nancy Lee. Welcome back, and thank you so much for being with us on this journey for 5 months. Can you believe it?
Wow. Yeah, 5 months. A lot's happened in 5 months.
Yes, a lot of life, a lot of conversations, a lot of stories. And I know, Nancy, you've done more of the heavy lifting than I have, and you've brought a lot of new voices and stories and insights and perspective about shame and going through some of the hard things, but also seeing some of the beauty of it. So, Nancy, wanted to kind of get your top of mind thoughts. What has really impressed you over the past 5 months as you've been this co-host?
Yeah, I think for me, I really wanted to wrap up the season with talking more about the beautiful aspects of shame, because it's easy for us to really press in and say, oh my gosh, this is our struggle and this is where it sucks and shame is bad, 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 because that is the message that we get, especially living in America. But I mean, we are a product of shame-based living, families and experience and shame-based upbringing, and for me, I'm proud to be an Asian American, and there are beautiful parts of that only, that we have to first embrace before the world can truly embrace and accept, right? So yeah, I hope that we can kind of delve into that a little bit more.
Yes, we'll definitely do that on this episode. And it's a bit ironic to go that way because our podcast is called Erasing Shame. And when we came up with the name, it was to indicate that there's painful parts of shame that we want to come out of the darkness and to erase. But the gerund, the ing, is also to indicate it's a process that kind of like we have to take a shower every day, or every few days anyways. For those that are steeped in Asian culture, shame is not something we want to carry with us all of the time. But yet, because of that, as you're indicating, it's part of our Asian culture, and there's some beautiful aspects to what shame can reflect. So, Nancy, share a couple of those things as we delve into that.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that, because I think with everything, every culture here in America as well, I mean, there are beautiful aspects of the culture, and there are parts where, it's not as highly favored, and we just need to be careful of that. But us living in the culture, then obviously, we are living and breathing it. But when we step outside of the box, and let's just say when you do a lot of travel, then you get to see the world on a more global level. And, me going to college really helped open up my mind to a lot of global perspectives and stuff like that. But you go to other countries, and a lot of other countries don't really like Americans, so there are other aspects of being an American that we just have to be careful as well. And so that's the same thing with being an Asian American, or just having shame in general, whatever that looks like. And so if we can really live in the place of what's the beautiful aspect of that? And here in America, I'd say that more of the culture tends to be a positive culture, where it's you don't want to be around depressed people. You don't want to be around, people who are talking negative things or low energy items, and I get it, because I'm in leadership development, and it's important to guard your own energy and be able to protect and have boundaries and stuff like that. But a lot of the book, The Model Minority Experience, right? That was the one Adrian Pay wrote some months back, where he said that a lot of communities of color and immigrant groups and stuff like that, they live and connect in a place of pain. And I think if we open up more conversations of vulnerability and allowing people to connect via their pain and their feelings, that's where we have a different level of intimacy that is unique to shame-based living, is being able to live in that pain together. And I always think of, this is a good image, but when you watched Crazy Rich Asians, there's very subtle moments, but just that reach of, I don't know, leaning into your friend, when the two girls were crying on the beach, when it was that bachelorette party, and she leaned into her friend and she leaned on her shoulder. And it's that's what it looks like for shame-based, behavior, to be able to be having intimacy and connecting and just having that oneness. Or, even when they were driving on the Jeep in Singapore, when they first landed from in the airport, and there's just this closeness of physically wanting to be with each other. And I think of what is it? The Japanese art kintsugi.
Kintsugi, yes.
And you're familiar where like the product of something that's broken is more beautiful when it's mended back together. Um, yeah, it's like allowing the pain to really build us and bring us to a greater sense of self. And the challenge is just not staying there, right? And that's with everything. You just can't live 100% in one world or another. Like it's being able to have a balance, both on the American side and as, the Asian aspects of who I am. Like there's parts of it that are great. And then there's other parts of it where, you just really learn to manage and hone and refine so that you can find the beauty out of it. And so I'd say that, being able to recognize that there's beauty in everything and embracing the pain, because it's through the pain that we really get to grow and become elevated through that process as long as we continue to move forward. So that's the important thing, not getting stuck.
Yeah, and that's what we've discovered in talking about shame. It's hard to talk about. And for someone that is stuck and unable to talk about their shame, then they're unable to say, quote unquote, move forward and to see the beautiful side of what shame can bring about. And so with kintsugi, it's a Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold. And it's that repairing that makes the kintsugi art beautiful and turning that brokenness into something more valuable. So in some ways, shame is like that broken pottery. So shame by itself uh, and that brokenness may not be all that beautiful, but something out of that can become beautiful. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think about my family. They left during a war torn, time of our era here in the Vietnam War, and I'm the product of that. You know what I mean? Like, yes, there was tragedy. Yes, there was trauma, but they left and they were able to sacrifice all of that because they were selfless and they were able to think, for the next generation, think of others, which is an aspect of shame is always thinking of others and being able to just have that extra grit and fortitude to push through hard things. Because when you've gone through a lot of pain, right, like you have a greater capacity to go through more pain. And that's just the reality. So like it's good for us to raise our kids with them being able to have a no here and there, right? To learn hard things, to learn chores, right? They might not like it, but they'll appreciate it later. And so for them being able to come here as refugees, and yeah, there were parts of it where it was really hard. There was a lot of pressure. But I mean, I got to go to a top university, and I've been able to now push forward and being able to grow as a person in my career, travel the world, all these different things that, yeah, there was a cost of, I'm still growing and healing on the inner self. But if there was not that added pressure and, the honor part of our culture, then maybe I wouldn't have achieved all those things. And to be honest, there's a lot of anger that goes through the process. But anger, if we think about it, anger is just an emotion. It's not attached to like if it's good or bad. It's just what you do with it. And there's a purpose for anger, and anger causes us to change. Anger brings us to a point where it's like, okay, something's got to change. Something's got to be different. And change is not a bad thing. So, like, if we think about conflict, maybe in the Asian culture, it's kind of more like harmony driven instead of conflict driven. They don't want conflict, so people typically avoid things rather than face them head on. But when you actually choose to go through the conflict, that's when change can happen. And if you continue to avoid it, then it'll just continue to say whatever it is, right? Which is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So I guess I'm just saying, like, if you really take a look at the different nuances and the different aspects of shame, and how can you reframe it so that you can start thinking about it in a positive way, and all the things that maybe you dislike or disown about yourself, think about the good that's come from it, because that's the place that we want to live. And that's how you can really be able to be more proud of who you are as a person, as part of your heritage, as part of who you are and the gifts that you carry for the world.
And it's great that you've made that journey. I'm also thinking of people who are stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
So what helped you to make that turning point of going towards the positive thing or the reframing instead of just being stuck in shame and being so weighed down by that pain and feeling like you don't have the strength to come out
Yeah.
of it. Where did you find that?
I mean, this podcast has helped me so much, which is
Mm,
why, I'm so thankful to have a chance to bring a voice to it. But the first thing is self-awareness, and I did share on the group page growing in emotional intelligence. And the first step is having self-awareness, because if you don't have ownership of what it is that's in your life that's affecting you, right, both the good and the bad, then you don't have a starting place to how to move forward from it and be able to like take that power back. So when you can name your shame, or the way Dr. Lisa had phrased it from season one, right? What is it? Name it and claim it, right? So that when you can claim it in your life, the parts of you that are maybe, you're not very happy with, that are challenging, or that has caused a lot of dysfunction in your relationships, then once you can, right, like the AA model, say I'm an alcoholic, right? Like actually take ownership of it. That's when you can take your power back and say, okay, now I need help. And maybe
yeah, there you go.
mean like I need to go to a support group. Yes, there's a lot of those and those are helpful, but there's a lot of resources, just being able to tap into learning and identifying, and then being embraced by community, a community that supports it and can help you grow and foster healing in some way.
Yeah, you've really painted out like a whole road map of great resources. And to recap, it's very much that first step. That first step, realizing you are stuck, realizing you are in pain, and admitting you have a problem. And then secondly, saying, "Hey, I need help." And because if you had it in yourself, you would might have found your way out. But because you are stuck and you don't have it in you, you need help for with others in community, and also discovering what you do have in you to bounce back, or resilience, or moving forward. Right?
Yeah, and I'd say that everybody goes through this. It's not just people who are in pain or shame. Like even people who are peak performers, like there's always another level of living and growth. And
Yeah.
so just recognizing where you're at and
Yeah.
what's the next level of growth for you.
Yeah. And we made this podcast for the 99% of people who are not the elite athletes and the high performers. So um, those other people can do what they do already.
Yeah. Well, that's where the leadership development for me, like I love to be able to bridge both of them, because as important as it is to really be able to talk about like how can I move forward, like what I've learned is that you can only move forward to the extent that you've reconciled your past. And like the conversation about shame, which is why Brene Brown has popularized it in a lot of ways, is she's been able to bring that conversation into right peak performance and corporate trainings and stuff like that, because they're like, okay, well, you want to have people live in a place of courage but not be vulnerable. So like if they're not talking to you directly about their problems and about the things that's blocking them, then right, you're basically not getting an authentic version of themselves, or they're then going behind your back, and then that's where the shame blame game comes in, right? So being able to, I think, create healthy space for all of us to be seen and captured and embraced is important in the world that we live, and just learning how to create more of that environment for people.
And that's what's hard. And that's the work we're trying to.
Yeah, and this is what allows that work to, right, one by one happen, even if it's just within you and your friend, or you or your husband or wife, right? Just like that one person, I think that makes the big difference. Because even I don't know about you, but like I've had conversations with people messaging me throughout the season, and they're like,
That's great.
"Hey, shame! Like I didn't really know about this," or like I didn't know Asian Americans experienced a lot of mental health. And I'm like, yeah, because what the world sees is this one-sided image of the perfection model minority, and we just want to create a more complete picture. That's all it is,
Mhm.
so that like I think the challenge that I find is that sometimes like I try to express myself and I say, I'm going through these things, or like, this is what it looks like in my family, and there's this instant shutdown or minimalizing of, no, but Asians have it all together, or like like Asian people, like you guys do good things, like you guys have good jobs, and it's like, no, like that's not really helping me right now. And one, that's a generalized blanket statement, because right, like there's so many experiences, so many stories, and yeah, there is a common theme when we think about a certain people group and the culture, or when we think about stereotypes or whatnot, there's a bit of truth to everything, but leaving room for people to actually be themselves, and then opening up healthy dialogue and understanding like their uniqueness or their story behind, their journey that they've been in. So
Yeah, and that's what we have to sort out. There's both the unique individual aspects of who a person is, and then there's also the cultural context that they've come from and even what they live in. And then on top of that, hey, there's things that we all have in common as well. So kind of 3 or 4 different buckets there. So in 5 months of talking with others and talking with our audiences and on Facebook and with each other and among your friends, what else have you learned in this journey?
well, I don't know if you noticed the theme, which I've kind of known before, but it was interesting to be able to talk to more people about it. But creativity
Mm-hmm.
is such an important aspect of being able to heal shame. And I actually experience a lot of this in my mind. Like I'm very left brained. I've even had a whole like what is it body scan because my chiropractic care, and they did a whole scan, and then all the nerve endings and everything like that, they relate it to your brain function, and they're like, yeah, you're very left brain. And I'm like, yeah, because left brain is like the rational logic side of thinking. And through a lot of my times of stress, as I'm continuing to grow and be healthy, like honestly, like I feel like my left brain, like physically, my left brain is inflamed. Like it's just constantly on, it's wired, it's thinking, it's overworked. But the cool thing is learning how music and creativity allows us to utilize both parts of our brain. And then, kind of relating that back even to the experience of when you're a child and growing up. And, when you do experience trauma, right? Like it's captured in certain parts of your brain, right? So that's why like we have to be sensitive to that and being able to utilize all parts of our brain so that we can bring forth all parts of ourselves so that we can actually be free and be happy and be okay with being ourselves. And so creativity is definitely one thing that I just saw as a cool common point for a lot of the people that I spoke with. And I think the more um, popular version of that in a lot of the Asian communities is like being able to do that in the sense of dance.
Mm.
Because even with dance, like I was always as a kid grew up and I had this admiration for dancers, and I had a boyfriend who was like a break dancer and all that stuff. So like I was surrounded by the dance community, and I always admired them because they were able to come together, being their whole selves, and then also in a very community based camaraderie around this sport, right? Like, well, in the case of breakdancing, they considered it more like a sport or this activity of dance, and then still have harmony, sync together as a community, but be able to have your own personal individual expression. So something that I haven't really been able to do, like group dancing, but I just like dancing in general. So I'd say if we can create more spaces for creativity, that's like one very easy thing that can all just make us better.
Wonderful. And as you described that, I'm thinking K-pop.
Yes, yes. In a lot of Southeast Asian cultures, like they're very timid with the dance. And so now as the world is becoming more global, they're becoming more like hip hop and pop music and all that stuff. But you've seen the Asian dances where they're like twirling an umbrella, right? Or they're standing with their hands like this. Like it's very subtle movements, and that's just kind of the traditional dance. But we've come a long way from that now, and so you'll definitely be able to see all the modern dance moves in all of Asia and stuff like that.
That's great. That's great. That's a great recap of some of the most valuable things that we've uncovered in season 3 that's been unique and different than the other seasons that we've had. And for 5 months, 5 months in this. So this has been our longest season.
Yeah.
So Nancy, thank you so much for being on this journey with me. And I know you've also had a lot happen in your personal life. Um, and I've seen you grow and develop as a co-host here, and I hope that it has added to your own set of skills and practices as you venture forth into the next season of your own life.
Yeah, and I'm excited because our last episode for this season will kind of be more of a bonus episode of just wrapping up my journey. But yeah, I just wanted to take the time today to be able to kind of, speak more to the audience of like, how can we learn about the detrimental parts of shame and then really be able to now embrace and own that's part of the culture that we grew up in, and how do we move forward from that? Because that's important, right? Like the self-awareness is the first step, but then we don't want to stay there. We always want to be able to continue moving forward. So, that's something that I'm so grateful for, even being able to host the podcast, because that was part of my journey of healing and part of my journey of being able to step into harder things and have greater courage. And as the season went on, like I hope that you can see, but I felt more relaxed being able to do that and more of myself. And so that's just an encouragement to the community of, even when there's hard things in front of you, like the way that you grow from them is you just do them one by one. And if it's not by yourself, then do it with a community. People sign up for improv classes or dance groups or whatever it is, like something that just allows you to put yourself out there. And, maybe it's a support group so that you can take the first step of having the conversations in a safe environment with someone guiding and facilitating that, because a lot of times our home environment may not be the best place to talk about it because they themselves are in shame. So reaching outside of what you know from the people who have been able to have success before you, so that you can glean from them and be surrounded by a new sort of positivity, a new environment, and be able to slowly, right, break free of the shame. So, yeah, DJ, how are you at the end of this season?
Well, I've had a very full year, a lot of activity with my work. I actually picked up another project with a different company, so I will be more occupied in terms of my energy and time. And so having a break from the Erasing Shame podcast and producing it will be helpful for my overall mental and emotional health. But it's been really good to see your co-hosting and your interviews. I want to affirm you, and I've seen the progress, and I'm so glad that we could share this opportunity together. And we'll see the good things that will come out of it that will touch many more lives.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the opportunity, because this is not obviously a platform that normally I would be able to have a voice in, but now in the world that we live in, where podcasts are becoming more normal, and especially the Asian American experience having a place and a voice for that, I think it's so important. And that's really like my goal from this past season, is being able to bring perspectives that normally wouldn't get to be seen. I mean, having a balance of it at least, but that's one thing I really appreciate being able to do for the community, because it is important to have various voices represented, and in that also just knowing that like the story is not complete unless you really can highlight all the different experiences from everyone's journey, and everyone's got a story. And that's the cool thing, is like everybody loves a story. Like you watch America's Got Talent and The Voice and all these things, and it's like there's pain. There's a moment of pain. There's a moment of shift in every story, and that's what makes a good story. So like us taking this message home and saying, okay, I experienced this dysfunction in my life, or this pain, or whatever, shame, but what are you going to do with it? What's your story? There's a story waiting for you. So don't let the current conditions, don't let the current moment steal you from the joy that's going to come from the beautiful, story, the completion of that work. So, yeah, just an encouragement to everybody there. And yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to be able to be here and to grow with you guys. And the next episode, which will be the final one for this season, I'm going to get to share a little bit more of the wrap up of my season. And I actually have a little special for our Erasing Shame community. So don't miss out, because I've been up to other big things outside of the Erasing Shame work, and something that I really want to be able to offer as an opportunity for the audience to also step into a greater level of their healing and authenticity. And yeah, that's part of why I've also wanted to bring on the voices of a lot of entrepreneurs and coaches and stuff like that, and not just therapists, because I think they're all important to have as part of the conversation. But I know in season 1 and 2 they highlighted that a little bit more. But for the work that I do, I just want to steer people more towards like, all right, how do you shift to now the social awareness and self-management, and being able to take back control for your life. So,
okay, sounds like a powerful episode. Can't wait. Thank you for tuning in to Erasing Shame this season for season 3. We've got, which means if this is season 3, that means we've got 2 previous seasons as well. You're free to browse as well as binge watch or binge listen to those. Everything is connected on the website at erasingshame.com, as well as our Facebook page and YouTube channel and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you, Nancy.
So I think that's it for today.
Please send in your feedback, add a review, add a rating on iTunes, and help others to experience the freedom and the growing and thriving when you go through this journey of erasing shame. And tune back next week.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for being a part of Erasing Shame. Please rate and review on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, and like on Facebook. Share with your friends and followers. Together, we are erasing shame one story at a time. Get all the details at erasingshame.com.